We are delighted that you're joining us for another podcast of Wake Up Aligned, and it is the podcast for chiropractors where we get to talk about chiropractic lifestyle, and topics of interest. You can contact us through our email, and that is mailbag@amcfamily.com. Well, welcome back to another episode of Wake Up Aligned. I'm your host, Dr. Shannon McMurtry, again, and we have a very special treat for you today. In the house is Dr. Neil Cohen, Senior Vice President of Sherman College of Chiropractic. And I know, Dr. Neil, you've got a specific title with that I'm sure I would butcher, so I'll let you handle those particulars. But very excited to have you with us today. For those of you who have never met Dr. Neil, I hope that you do get the opportunity to do so. He is a chiropractor's chiropractor, in my opinion. I've heard him speak many, many times, and he is always motivating, he is always inspiring, and he is certainly empowering chiropractors to live a philosophy-filled life, in my opinion. So, Dr. Neil, welcome to the show.
So grateful that you asked me, Dr. McMurtry, and I'm happy to be here sharing with you my love for chiropractic, and it's really why I do it. And my official title is Senior Vice President for Presidential Initiatives at Sherman College. I was the Executive Vice President for several years, ran some departments, had some administrative duties. Now I am more a person who creates relationships, and we've created a great one with AMC.
Yes.
Such good folks here at AMC, and we're happy to have not only the relationship, but many of our students enjoying relationships with you. And some of them have gone on to become very successful chiropractors,
yes,
and we're happy about that because it's all about the future of chiropractic, isn't it?
You got that right. Yes, sir. And by the way, Dr. Neil, if you want to call me Shannon, I'd be more than honored for that. No need to be so formal. So before we get to know you in your professional capacity, let's talk about some of the stuff, in the background. Why did you get into chiropractic? What motivated you to become a chiropractor? Tell us about your family if you feel led to do so.
Well, I believe chiropractic is not a career, it's a calling. That's just, for me, it's been demonstrated over and over again by the students that I see coming into Sherman College. And for me, it was no different back in 1979. I always knew that I wanted to do something special with my life, but I did not know what that was. And I entered college. I went to 2 years of college, took a lot of elective courses, things that I was interested in, but really was going nowhere. So I dismissed myself from college and started working pretty hard. We actually built custom cars, and I was a disco DJ at night, believe it or not. Very few people know that I spun records back in the late 70s, and that's where I met my wife. And we got together, and she was actually going to a chiropractor at the time.
Interesting.
And I was saying, what is all that stuff about? Is that, really anything good? And she said, well, why don't you just come with me? As a Proverbs 31 woman does, she just said, why don't you just come with me and just check it out yourself? So I went to the chiropractor, and it was so interesting. I had a terrible shoulder. I could barely raise my left arm up in the air. And when I went into the chiropractor, he was extremely disarming, as many chiropractors are, just a lovely man.
Sure.
And he loved my wife, Randy, who was my girlfriend at the time. And he said to me, have you ever been checked? And I said, no. He said, well, it looks to me like you might have a bad neck. And he kind of threw me for a loop because I had gotten stiff necks my entire life.
Right.
Had never been to a chiropractor.
Sure.
So he said, I'm going to do something for you, and I'm going to take some x-rays, and we're going to go ahead and give you an adjustment. And he said the magic word. And at the time, I was pretty young and pretty broke. So he said, we're going to do it for free.
Yes.
And so I said, okay. So he took an x-ray of my neck, probably two, I don't recall. And he showed me that I had lost the curve in my neck, and I needed to be adjusted. So he went ahead and he adjusted me. Now, mind you, I never told him about my shoulder.
Sure.
I never mentioned my shoulder.
Sure.
I never showed him I couldn't lift my arm. He just said, you have a bad neck. So he adjusted me. And Dr. Shannon, I tell you, it was like the weight of the world was lifted off of my shoulders. I didn't know I was carrying the weight of the world until I received that first chiropractic adjustment. And I said, where have they been keeping this stuff? This is amazing.
There you go.
So I was just got out of college. Now I said, I got to get back into college. I've got to become a chiropractor.
Right.
But here's the funny part. As I walked out of that office, I was able to lift my arm. And I thought to myself, he never touched my shoulder. How does this work? This is amazing. And it was at that moment that God was allowing me to buy this thing hook, line, and sinker without even knowing what it was. So I was very, very intrigued, and I wanted to know what it was. And unfortunately, he was not a big educator. He was a super nice guy, but I asked him to explain chiropractic to me, and he really just smiled and said, it's good. It's just good. That's all I know. And so I wrote away to all the chiropractic colleges that day and decided I was going to be a chiropractor. So I credit my wife for birthing chiropractic into our family because we have 3 children and 2 of them are now very successful chiropractors. So it's just been an amazing ride. That's how I got into it. And I always have felt like I never worked a day in my life being a chiropractor.
Sure.
In practice for 28 years, it was the most marvelous thing to do, to light people up, to deliver a pure chiropractic adjustment, to watch their families express themselves and grow. And it was just a lot of fun. So and that's the part I remember. I don't remember all the other stuff in practice.
Right.
But very interestingly enough, I graduated in 1986. And I was in practice for quite some time. And it was around 2005 that I joined AMC. AMC was a very bold in their approach because they claimed that they were a Christian organization. And back then in 2005, you didn't hear much of that.
That's true.
I was a fairly new believer in the Lord, and I was very impressed by their boldness. And I really liked that. So I made the phone call. I can't recall who I spoke with, but I came to a boot camp, and my wife said, sign up for this. We're going to do it. And we became clients of AMC. And I have to tell you, the things that I learned at AMC, even then, I still use today. It's a genius method for being successful. And here's what I mean by that. You know, I learned by trial and error in practice. For me, it was all about every day just, dealing with whatever things we needed to react to. And AMC gave me a formula, a process, objectives, and different ways to handle finances. So it was really a lot more fun to be able to have monetary success and be assured of monetary success using the AMC principles. And one of the things that Dr. Tom Owen, God rest his soul, he used to say, don't kid yourself.
That's true.
And oftentimes as chiropractors, we kid ourselves because we measure success by the number of people we see, but it's not always the number of people we see. It's other things too. And I learned a lot of that at AMC, and I'm very, very grateful. So that's part of my story. And of course, my story went on, but we'll let you ask the questions.
Oh, fair enough. Hey, well, that's a great story. I love hearing how people found their way to this profession and this calling and I love the way that you said that. Listen, maybe I'm the only one in the room, but I've been sitting here thinking the whole time, DJ. So Dr. Neal, when was the last time you used your DJ voice? Not even officially, but just like bopping down the road on the radio, and you're like, hey, listeners, go ahead. Do you want to bust it out for us? You want to do your DJ voice?
No, I don't want to embarrass myself or any of the people sitting in this room, but, maybe next time, maybe podcast number 2, we'll do that.
Well, okay, that's fair.
We'll spin some records too.
Let's see, that's why I'm sitting in this chair, Dr. Neal. I'm willing to risk and ask those bold questions to the guest here. So you mentioned you have 2 sons who are successful in practice. Where do they practice?
So I have 3 children, 2 boys surrounded by my daughter who's in the middle. And my oldest, he is not a chiropractor. Okay. He's an entrepreneur who lives in Orlando. He's in the insurance industry, and he's extremely successful.
Wonderful.
My daughter, Sarah, she had a practice in Greenville, South Carolina. She's a Sherman grad, sure. And she was extremely successful. She met the love of her life, so she sold her practice, and now she's in Denver, Colorado, and she's practicing out there. So she's having the time of her life. My youngest son, Michael, he's an incredible child, and I have learned so much from him. He's got a wonderful story. When Michael was 9 years old, he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Oh, wow.
And it was very interesting because him being my youngest, all three of my kids were born at home. They were never vaccinated. Sure. They were only under chiropractic care. Sure. As I said, we bought this thing hook, line, and sinker, and we couldn't understand why Michael got sick. And at the end of the day, it served to change his life in such a positive way, and I'll tell you why. God uses sometimes the challenges in our life to move us closer to him, and I really questioned chiropractic when Michael got diagnosed, and it was an opportunity for God to teach me that chiropractic was about a promise. It wasn't about a potential, because here's the thing. We can promise that we can find a subluxation and correct that, and you'll be better. But what that looks like, your potential, we have no idea. So for many reasons, even chiropractors get sick. And it's not the fact that they don't receive enough chiropractic care or the wrong chiropractic care. It's just what happens in life. When you are made of matter, you cannot know the potential of that matter. There's too many factors in that we cannot know. And when Michael got diagnosed, and I became very sad about that and thought I had failed as a chiropractor. Was I not giving the right adjustment? God smacked me. It took a while, but he smacked me. And he said, here's the thing. It's about the promise and not the potential. And Michael has been given this because it's going to strengthen him as a human being, as an adult, and as a chiropractor. What it caused me to do was to give him up as a patient. I gave him to an upper cervical chiropractor, a NUCA chiropractor named Justin Brown. Mm-hmm. He started adjusting him, and Michael's insulin levels went up. His hemoglobin A1C3 came down. He was taking less insulin. His life got better. His immune system got stronger. And boy, was that a humbling experience for me. Right. But what it taught me was that Michael was paying attention, and he saw the power of an upper cervical chiropractic adjustment. And he became an incredible force in chiropractic. He right now practices in Pompano Beach, Florida. Mm-hmm. And he has an all-cash practice. He takes care of lots of children, lots of families. He's doing amazing things. He is just an incredible chiropractor. He worked for a very, very seasoned and successful chiropractor in Edmonton, Alberta, met his wife in Canada, got married, had his baby, who's our first grandson, at home as Michael was born at home in Canada in a 1-bedroom apartment. This kid buys it hook, line, and sinker, and I'm so proud of him, and I'm so proud of all of my children. But it's just a great opportunity to see what legacy means. And always remember that your children are paying attention to the decisions that you're making in life. And oftentimes we don't know that these challenges that we face as adults and that they face as children are really what is conforming them into the image that God wants them to be conformed, and allowing them to use the gifts that God has given them.
That's awesome. And I love that. Great story. You've done this a time or two before, haven't you? You've told some stories.
Well, you know what? I think that stories are important.
They are.
I think stories really touch people's heart. And I think that's where, it's interesting you asked that question, because I didn't know we were going to go here, but I'll say this. I think when we're in practice, we tend to do a lot more telling.
We do.
And sometimes telling doesn't really get the patient connected. Sometimes it's the story that sells the thing that we want them to buy. Yeah. And, everything's a negotiation, and people, they don't necessarily pay attention to information unless it's very specific to them or they completely understand it. And frankly, they'll never tell you if they don't. So if you can really relate a story, and this is especially important when you're doing your patient orientation class, this is especially important when you're really attempting to get generations into your practice. I mean, when one person comes in, I don't see them as the patient. I see their whole family as coming in. So how do you get them in? Let them know. Let them know the impact that chiropractic can have on their life, and then allow God to work through them to allow them to make the decision. So I think it's important.
There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Let's move from your biological kids to your Sherman kids. Did you like that transition? Was that smooth?
I did. And I took a sigh of relief because it's funny. You have such a responsibility to your own children, and my wife and I, we have taken that responsibility to our Sherman kids as well.
Sure you have.
And we opened our home to the Sherman children. And I call them all children. I don't care. I don't care if they're your age or my age. They're all the Sherman kids.
I know.
And here's the reason. They're the future of this profession. And we have to really develop relationships with them and let them know how much we care about chiropractic. I often say chiropractic is really the thing that we're promoting. Sherman is the vehicle that gets us there.
Sure.
So let's keep that vehicle as streamlined as we can. Let's give them the best of the best. Let's raise our Sherman children the way we would raise our own, with love, with tenderness, with instruction, with knowledge, sometimes with discipline, and get them to be hungry enough to become the best version of themselves as a chiropractor. And what's so cool is I come to the AMC meetings and I see some of our Sherman grads, and I hear about how successful they are. I get a little jealous, and I say, man, I wish I was back in practice. They're doing super well. So it's really cool to see the Sherman grads doing so well. I just love them all, and I can't wait to see how it all envelops and just what the outcome is for all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys have had you didn't start off with the best of circumstances when you joined the Sherman team. I think you said earlier that you started with like 160 kids, and now you guys have built it up. So take us through that journey a little bit.
Yeah, so interesting journey. Sometimes when God calls you, you just listen. There's a story in the Bible about Abraham, and God told Abraham to get up and go. And he went to the land of Ur. He didn't ask why. He didn't say, how long is it going to take me? He didn't say, how much am I going to get paid for doing it? He just listened to the voice of God. And God credited Abraham with righteousness because he believed God. And it was sort of the same thing for Dr. Cordero and I. I can remember the day that Dr. Cordero called me, and, we were both just guys in successful practices.
Sure.
We were brothers in chiropractic. We went to church together, and he called me one day and he said, I think I'm going to go for the presidency of Sherman College. And it was so interesting how God gave me this thought. And I can still remember where I was sitting in front of my house, inside my car when he called me. And I said to him, this is going to be historical. I don't know where that came from, but I knew the man. I knew the man Cordero, and I knew what he could accomplish, and I knew that he was a special cat. And so he went up to Sherman to get this position. He was among about 20 or 25 other candidates. They narrowed it down to 3, and then they picked him. But here's the thing that people don't know about Dr. Cordero. Before they picked him, he had sold his practice, he had sold his home, and he was living in a very tiny apartment. He had acted as if he was going to be chosen without knowing he was going to be chosen. His family thought he was out of his mind.
Sure.
But he has a very supportive wife, Debbie, and they prayed about it, and they knew that it was the right decision. They walked the campus, they saw the campus, and they said, this is a diamond in the rough. This is a place where God is going to plant us. So when they were planted there, and they were told at that time, listen, if you don't get this college going, we're going to graduate out, we're going to sell the land, we're going to either close the college or look for a new location. And that was something they told him after he got the job.
Right.
So he had to dance. And he went from 162 students, started to build the college, started to get some support financially for the college from the folks that we had made relationships with from around the world. And about a year later, he said to me, I need you to come here and help me. We're getting this thing going. And we started with 162 students, and now we're well over 400 students. But the good news is that we've transformed the campus.
Sure.
We did a $20 million project. The campus now has new buildings. It's just an amazing place, completely transformed and beautiful in the foothills of the mountains in South Carolina. It's just an amazing place. We love it. And here's the thing I'll say, because there's other colleges out there that are bigger than we are. We don't want to be the biggest. We never want to be the biggest. We want to have the biggest impact on the profession. And there's a difference between having a smaller college where you can have hands-on with all your people and all your faculty and all your students, or having a big college where you're just a number. And we are a Sherman family, and we love what we've created, and God has completely blessed us over and over and over again. So that's the story, and I'm sticking to that.
You're making a big impact because I know chiropractors whose children are interested in chiropractic school, and they'll let them get down to three choices. You can go to Sherman, you can go to the college in South Carolina, or you can go to Sherman. So, it's good to give the kids choices. I want to say something provocative about that story. He sold his practice. He sold his house. He said he was living in a van down by the river. No, a tiny apartment. And you said he was out of his mind. He was completely out of his mind because he was out of his mind because he was purposed in his heart. Mm-hmm. See, when God purposes you in your heart, your educated mind doesn't have a fight there. It still tries to battle, but once you've got it purposed in your heart, you've bypassed all that intellect, and you're not trying to do or strategizing to become. You've accepted that you are. Right. And I think that's a very special thing. If we can get purposing in our heart about any calling in life, fatherhood or parenthood, or in our relationships with God, I mean, you help out that whole process. I wanted to comment on that. That's a personal thing for me.
And if I could just comment on that, sure. I'm glad that it provoked you to say that, because it is important that the center and circumference of our life is purpose-driven.
Yes.
And we have to make the center and circumference of our life the relationship with Jesus Christ.
Why are you saying center and circumference? You say that specifically. Why that?
Because it's everything. It's everything.
And
the world tends to give us many distractions that are outside the center and circumference. So if we're not in the center and the circumference, if we're not in Him we live and we are moved and have our being. I know it says in Him we live and move and have our being, but the Greek translation is in Him we live and are moved and have our being. So He is the center and circumference of our life. And when we can have that relationship with God, when we're praying always, when we're continuously thankful, when we're joyful in all circumstances, it's because of Him. It's not because of us. Because if we think about all of those things, you can't be joyful in all circumstances. You can't pray continuously. You can't be thankful for all things, because we have a nature within us that fights against that.
Absolutely.
And so it's when God specifically gives you that purpose, you have to pay attention. You have to listen. And I'm very proud of Dr. Cordero and the way he did that, because when he asked me to come to Sherman, I immediately said yes. I knew that was going to, I don't know how I knew, but I knew he was going to ask me. I knew it was going to happen. And the funny thing is, I didn't use my educated mind, because if I did, I would have said, how much are you paying me? I never said that. So I got there and then he told me how much. I was like, well, I wish you would have told me that before I got here. but no, I'm completely blessed being with Sherman College for the last 9 years and working with Dr. Cordero for the last 10. It's been an amazing ride.
Well, you're a humble man, so I think this will probably hit you in that humble place. But not only are you blessed to be part of that, but the chiropractic profession is blessed for you to be part of that, right? What you're doing, the caliber of chiropractor you guys are turning out is, hey, we need that in this profession, right? We need that. AMC has we're approaching 30 years of serving, and that's even before Dr. Tom's service to chiropractic, before the AMC family was birthed. And I really do feel, as a member myself for almost 23 years now, I really do feel that God-centered and circumferenced phrase that you're talking about, that's what allows us to be who we are and just march steadily through the decades, unchanging principles, right? The system is the system. Now, we're not a one-size-fits-all, right? There are people who they have a concept of practice or a purposing in their heart that isn't congruent with what we offer. But for the ones that they do see their future here, we've just been steady Eddie through the years, right? Even though chiropractic, you know how chiropractic can be. They go after the newfangled shiny object and this lucrative scheme and that opportunity and whatever. And there's still no better power than that adjustment and unleashing that innate in that patient. That's what motivates us, right? That's what keeps us going.
No one else has our unique contribution to society.
Absolutely.
When we apprehend, understand the value of that, that's when we will begin to be motivated. You have to, we've been held down. We've been put in the mud. We've fought, if we look at our history, we have been we've been the redheaded stepchild.
I have redheads in my family. They're not stepchildren.
I told you I will offend someone. And I'm sure some of those folks out there have red hair. But my point is that we have overcome so much because we wave the flag of truth.
Amen.
And we know who does the healing. And this is so important. And we have to get out of the way and realize that God is the one who is healing. We make the adjustment and step back, and then we say to the patient, tell me what your life looks like, because we have an amazing God, an amazing power who breathes life into us. And that life is what gives us the ability to heal. And it is just an amazing thing to know that we, as chiropractors, get that opportunity. But whenever you carry truth, there's always going to be another force trying to shut truth down.
Absolutely.
And the fact that you guys at AMC, and gals, I should say, have stayed so steady. And I know that because as I said, 2005, that was about 17 years ago. Yes. So, and I remember you. I remember you were there. You were there in the blue jacket when I got to AMC. And it really has remained very steady. And Dr. Cohen has left a legacy as well. He's left a legacy in Florida at the Florida Chiropractic Society, which was a springboard to my leadership at Sherman College because I was a board member of that esteemed organization, and I'm still very close to them. Been a member there for almost 30 years, and he just had such an impact and such a way about him that was pure love. And I was grateful to be in his presence during the time that I was here at AMC.
Amen. I've often remarked, no other man that I've met face to face has affected my life so positively and radiated just genuine love without an expectation of return. What a gift. I miss him every day, and I just appreciate that tribute and that reminder of where it all began. So our good-looking and talented producer over there, Snacks, is getting antsy, which means, Dr. Neal, we're up against the clock. So you've been very gracious. Would you like to do a plug for Sherman College? How do they get in touch with you or the college or whatever?
Sherman's really easy to get in touch with, www.sherman.edu. We've got a fabulous website. Go check it out. We offer a couple of different things. For those that are out there practicing, if you have any prospective students within your purview, certainly send them to the website. We have our Showcase Sherman weekend. We do 4 times a year where they can come. We'll put them up in a hotel. We'll feed them. We'll share with them philosophy. We'll share the culture of the college. They'll be in a palpation class. They'll look at the area of Spartanburg, which is absolutely beautiful. It's an opportunity for us to share our home with them. And for those of you that want to be better at philosophy, we have our Academy of Chiropractic Philosophers program, which is amazing. And you could find that on our website as well. So come visit Sherman College. You will know where chiropractic lives once you're there. And it is a great place. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, my email is ncohen@sherman.edu. And I just thank you so much, Dr. Shannon, for this opportunity to share about Sherman, chiropractic, and all the things that we talked about. It's been great.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. By the way, I didn't tell him that we charge $20 per second on those plugs. So make sure we settle up with him later.
That's a bargain, man.
He shared his contact information. As always, AMC's contact information will follow at the end of this podcast. Dr. Neal, thank you so much. One more opportunity to use your DJ voice, by the way.
We're going to pass on that.
Okay. Save it for next time.
My DJ voice at age 20 is different than my DJ voice at age 64.
It's a richer baritone. It's a more filled voice. Well, that's what we call a teaser in the biz. They'll have to come back for another episode to get your DJ voice. Hey, folks, thank you again so much for joining us. As always, we are hoping and expecting these podcasts to start your week off on the right foot, where you can be inspired, motivated, and empowered to serve your community to the best of your abilities. We will see you next week. And one more thing before we go. If you're a chiropractor who's searching for a better way to build a more sustainable, low-stress practice, then you can contact us at amcfamily.com. You can schedule a discovery session, or you can access any of our free content, webinars, podcasts, and the like.